We live in a world that worships movement. Keep going, keep building, keep chasing, and if you're not doing something, then something must be wrong. We've attached value to our pace, as if stillness is weakness and rest is failure. But here's what most people don't realize until their body forces them to stop. Stillness isn't the absence of life, it's the beginning of connection. When you finally get quiet enough to hear your breath, you start to hear everything else you've been avoiding. Most people aren't afraid of silence because it's boring. They're afraid of silence because it's honest. It brings up everything that noise was keeping at bay. But what if that honesty isn't something to fear? What if it's something your heart has been waiting for? Stillness gives you the chance to meet yourself again. Not the version of you that's answering emails, showing up for others, or pretending everything's fine. The real you, the part of you that's tired, maybe, or scared, or uncertain, the part that's been whispering in the background, hoping you'd slow down long enough to listen. And when you finally give yourself those few uninterrupted minutes with healing music, you create space for that version to speak, not in words, but in feelings, in awareness, in breath. It's a kind of reunion. And like any reunion, it might come with emotion. Sometimes that emotion looks like tears. Sometimes it's just a sense of exhale you didn't know you needed. But what always comes with stillness is truth. You realize how fast you've been moving, how tightly you've been gripping, and slowly the music and the moment start to loosen that grip. You begin to notice the things you hadn't, the tightness in your chest, the way your shoulders never really drop, the constant pressure behind your eyes, and even deeper than that, the emotional patterns that have been running on repeat without your awareness. Fear of not being good enough, a need to prove your worth, the anxiety of always feeling behind. These patterns live inside us like old wallpaper we never removed. Stillness lets us see them clearly without judgment, and that's the first step to healing them. Because here's something most people don't understand. Emotional healing doesn't always come from talking. Sometimes it comes from being, just being, being with the sound, being with the silence, being with yourself. That's where the magic happens, not in solving, but in surrendering. The truth is, you've probably been carrying too much for too long. You've been strong, capable, and dependable. But strength isn't just about carrying weight. It's also about knowing when to set it down. When you choose to be still, you're telling your body it's okay to stop. You're telling your nervous system you're safe now. And you're telling your heart, I see you, I haven't forgotten you. These small, quiet acts of self-acknowledgement may not look like much. But inside, they are revolutions. They are moments of reset. You don't need a therapist in the room or a big breakthrough. Sometimes it's as simple as this, letting the music hold the space while you rest inside it. That's why healing meditation music is more than sound, it's sanctuary. You're not here to figure anything out. You're not here to become something new. You're here to remember who you were before the stress built up. Before the noise, before the pressure to be everything to everyone. You're here to come back to you. And the beautiful thing is, stillness doesn't judge you. It doesn't demand perfection. It just invites you to slow down, to breathe deeper, to soften into yourself, and in that softening you find clarity. You begin to see that the stress you've been feeling while real isn't who you are, the anxious thoughts, the self-doubt, the constant doing. None of that is your identity. It's just energy, temporary, changeable, movable. Stillness allows that energy to shift. And here's the truth most people miss. Healing isn't dramatic. It's not always a tear-filled epiphany or a life-changing realization. Sometimes healing is a quiet moment where you stop clenching your jaw. Sometimes it's realizing you've been holding your breath for hours and letting yourself finally exhale. Sometimes it's just choosing to sit with yourself in silence and not turn away. Those moments might not get recognition, they might not be loud, but they change you. They remind you that peace isn't something you earn, it's something you allow, and the more often you allow it, the more natural it becomes to live in that space. So let this stillness be your reminder. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not too much or too little. You are a human being who deserves to rest, deserves to reconnect, deserves to heal. And right now, in this moment of calm, you're doing exactly that. You are healing, not by effort, but by presence, not by fixing, but by feeling, and that is more than enough. There's a kind of language that doesn't require words. It doesn't care if you're fluent in English, Hindi, or no language at all. It doesn't wait for your permission or your understanding. It speaks straight to your core, the parts of you that existed long before logic or belief. This language is sound, and when it's used intentionally, when it's shaped into the right frequencies, it becomes medicine for your nervous system. We live most of our lives in our heads, thinking, planning, analyzing. We try to reason our way into peace, but peace doesn't come from logic. It doesn't show up because we checked everything off a list. Peace is a state, and states aren't thoughts. They're feelings. That's why healing music is so powerful. Because it doesn't try to convince you. It simply invites you, and the body responds before the mind even realizes what's happening. Think about it. Have you ever heard a piece of music that gave you chills? Or a song that made you cry, even though you didn't understand why? That's because sound has direct access to your emotions. It bypasses your filter of judgment. It doesn't ask if it's appropriate or timely. It just touches something inside you, something that's been waiting to be acknowledged. When healing frequencies are played, 528 Hz, 432 Hz, solfeggio tones, they begin to interact with your energy field. That might sound mystical, but it's actually deeply biological. Your nervous system is constantly listening. Not just with your ears, but with your skin, your cells, your heartbeat. When you hear a calm, resonant frequency, your vagus nerve picks up on it. That nerve is like the master switch for your parasympathetic system, the one that tells your body you're safe, you can relax now. And here's what's incredible, you don't even need to understand the music for it to work. You don't have to sit cross-legged or know how to meditate. All you have to do is listen, let the sound surround you. Let it become the room you're in. Your breathing will naturally begin to slow. Your muscles will start to release. And all of this happens without you forcing a single thing. That's the beauty of sound. It heals through permission, not pressure. But it's more than physical. Sound reaches emotional memory too. It connects you to times in your life when you felt something deeply. It brings back softness, vulnerability, nostalgia, and love. And sometimes, yes, it surfaces grief that hasn't been processed. But that's part of healing too, because emotion that stays buried eventually turns into tension, illness, or burnout. When sound opens the door, what's been hiding finally gets a voice. That's why people cry during meditation. That's why they suddenly remember moments they thought they forgot. The music isn't creating pain, it's just revealing what's already there, and once it's revealed, it can move, it can shift, it can be released. So if you find yourself getting emotional during healing music, let that be okay. You're not weak, you're not overreacting, you're responding, and that response is wisdom. It means something inside you is awake and aware. That's a gift. There's something deeply comforting about this, isn't there? That you don't have to fix everything through thought. That there's a tool, a frequency, that can hold you while you rest. That can rewire old patterns without needing you to relive the trauma behind them. This is why many therapies are now integrating sound, because the body knows how to respond long before the mind knows how to explain. And here's the truth, you've already been shaped by sound your entire life. The lullaby that soothed you as a child, the first time someone spoke your name with love, the voice of someone you trusted, and even the absence of sound during moments of abandonment. Your system remembers all of it. So when it hears something safe, something healing, something that resonates at the frequency of peace it knows, it recognizes it, like a soul remembering its native tongue. That's what this music is. It's not background noise, It's not just something to fill the silence. It is the silence. It is the intentional sound within the silence, the frequency of wholeness, and the more you let yourself receive it, the more your system begins to recalibrate. Like tuning a piano that's been out of pitch for years, the music doesn't judge, it just patiently returns you to harmony. So even if you don't feel it working right away, trust that it is. Healing doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes in the form of tension leaving your shoulders, or your thoughts getting quieter, or your heart rate softening by just a few beats. These shifts are subtle but powerful. Sound isn't here to save you. You don't need saving. It's simply here to support you in coming back to the part of you that never needed to be fixed, only heard. Let the music do what it does. Speak to the parts of you that words never could. And know that each time you return to it, you're reminding your body what safety feels like, what peace sounds like, what it means to be home within yourself again. There's a conversation happening inside you every single day. You might not hear it clearly, but you feel it, that tightening in your chest, that constant loop of what ifs, that inner tension that never seems to loosen, even on your best days. It's not just stress. It's the story beneath the stress, the narrative that says, I have to hold it all together. I can't rest yet. If I slow down, I'll fall behind. And like any story, the more we repeat it, the more real it feels, even when it's quietly destroying us. What we call stress is often not just about what's happening outside of us. It's what we're telling ourselves about what's happening, that if we don't answer fast enough, we'll disappoint someone, that if we're not constantly productive, we'll lose our worth, that if we don't get it all right, we'll somehow be left behind. These thoughts play like a soundtrack in the background of our lives, and without realizing it, we begin to live according to that music, frantic, fast, paced, always performing. But what if we could change the soundtrack? That's where meditation steps in, not as an escape from life, but as a return to life. It interrupts the rehearsed drama, it slows the performance. It says, let's pause this scene for a moment and see what's really true. Because the truth is, most of the pressure we feel, we've internalized, we've absorbed it over years, from our parents, from school, from work, from society. It's like we've been handed a script, and we never stopped to ask who wrote this, and do I want to keep reading from it? In silence, through meditation and healing sound, that question gets loud. The moment you stop running, you begin to realize maybe you've been chasing something that doesn't actually bring you peace. Maybe you've been living by rules you never agreed to. Maybe you've been waiting for permission to rest, permission that was always yours to give. Stress doesn't just live in your schedule, it lives in your story. And if you want to change your life, you have to change that story. Not by pretending everything's okay, but by looking at what you've been believing about yourself. And sound meditation helps because it creates a gentle space where those beliefs can rise, without shame. You begin to hear the voice that says, I'm not enough, or I always mess things up, or no one really sees me, and in that moment you have a choice. You can keep living from that voice, or you can meet it with compassion. Meditation doesn't get rid of the voice, it helps you understand it, and when you understand it, you can finally question it. You can ask, where did this come from? Is this really mine, or did I inherit it from someone else? That's when the shift begins. That's when the battle inside starts to calm, not because you've defeated anything, but because you've started listening instead of fighting. And here's the part that no one tells you: healing doesn't mean the voice disappears. It means you stop believing everything it says, you stop letting it drive the car, you let it sit in the back seat, maybe even the trunk, and you begin to take the wheel from a deeper place, a place of awareness, stillness, and self-respect. This is what sound meditation offers, not a magical cure, but a new relationship with your mind, one where your thoughts don't run wild, unchecked, one where your nervous system isn't constantly bracing for impact, one where you no longer rehearse the story of never enough, but begin writing something truer. I am allowed to be here as I am, fully. When the sound washes over you, your system responds before your logic can interrupt. The frequencies help dissolve the armor you've built out of fear and performance. You feel your body soften, and with that softening comes something rare, honesty, the kind of honesty you usually hide even from yourself. And yes, sometimes that honesty stings, but it also liberates, because it means the old story is no longer in control. You're no longer stuck on repeat. You're writing new pages, slowly, gently, consciously. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, before you reach for another task to distract you, pause, listen, ask yourself, what am I rehearsing right now? And then breathe, let the sound do its work. Let it create a new rhythm in your body. One that isn't based on panic, but presence. One that reminds you, peace was never outside of you. It was just buried under a story that never belonged to you in the first place. Meditation doesn't erase your problems, but it rewrites the way you carry them. It teaches you that stillness is strength, that softness is resilience, that your worth doesn't depend on how much you do, but how deeply you're willing to be, and that battle inside. It doesn't need to be won, it needs to be witnessed. That's how it ends, not in force but in presence, not in fear but in awareness, and in that space healing begins. You can live an entire life in your head, planning the next move, replaying the past, worrying about things that haven't even happened. It's so common, it feels normal, but just because it's common doesn't mean it's healthy. The truth is, most of us are walking around with tension we didn't even notice, holding our breath without realizing it, lost in mental noise that never truly stops, and the body, our wisest guide, is quietly waiting for us to come home. There's something sacred about dropping out of thought and into sensation. It doesn't require explanation. It doesn't ask for perfection. It just asks that you notice the inhale, the way your chest rises, the way your belly softens when you let go. That's the entry point to presence. That's where healing lives, not in the mind, but in the body. When you allow yourself to feel the weight of your body on the floor, the rhythm of your breath, the sound vibrating around you, something shifts. The mental static begins to clear, and you start to realize how long you've been disconnected, not because you meant to be, but because you forgot what it felt like to truly be here. Most of us leave so much of our lives above the neck. We analyze, we judge, we try to make sense of everything, but the body doesn't need sense. It needs safety. It needs softness, it needs space, and healing begins the moment you give it those things, the moment you stop demanding it to carry your stress without acknowledgement, the moment you place a hand on your heart and say, I'm listening now. Sound meditation helps with this because it's not just an auditory experience, it's physical. You don't just hear it, you feel it. The vibrations travel through your skin, your bones, your nervous system. They speak to the parts of you that words can't reach, and slowly, gently, they guide you back to the body. This is why healing can be so subtle. You won't always notice a dramatic shift. Sometimes it's as small as a muscle unclenching, or a sigh escaping that you didn't know you were holding in. Sometimes it's just the realization that for the first time today, your thoughts aren't shouting over everything else. They've softened into the background and your presence has taken center stage. Coming back to the body is a kind of remembering, a remembering of rhythm, of pulse, of breath. The world pulls us out every single day, with screens, with stress, with urgency. But the body is never in a hurry. It's always here, always steady, always inviting us back into truth. And that truth is this: you are alive, you are here, you are allowed to feel everything without rushing to fix it. There's a kind of peace that arrives when you stop trying to think your way out of discomfort and instead feel your way into it. Not to solve it, but to acknowledge it. Because sometimes the most healing thing you can do is sit in the discomfort and not abandon yourself. And the body, that wise, sacred place, will guide you through it if you let it. Maybe the anxiety isn't something to escape. Maybe it's an invitation to check in, to notice where you've been holding. Maybe that tightness in your throat is a voice you've silenced. Maybe that pressure in your chest is grief you never gave space to. And maybe, just maybe, by coming back to the body, you finally begin to listen without judgment. Sound meditation doesn't ask you to understand what's coming up. It only asks you to stay, to breathe, to be curious instead of critical. And that shift, however small, is everything. Because when you stop resisting your body and start respecting it, you unlock a kind of safety no one else can give you. This is the power of presence. When you stop outsourcing your peace and realize it's been within your breath, your heartbeat, your spine all along. When the mental noise fades, you begin to hear something else, your inner rhythm. The part of you that's steady even when everything else feels chaotic, the part of you that knows how to self-soothe, to self-regulate, to self-return, and returning doesn't mean retreating from life. It means re-entering life more fully from a grounded, embodied place. It means making decisions from intuition, not anxiety. It means engaging with people from your center, not your wounds. It means choosing rest without guilt. Boundaries without fear, compassion without conditions. The body doesn't need you to be perfect. It just needs you to show up, to listen, to touch in every once in a while and ask, how are we really doing? And to not turn away from the answer, even if it's messy. Because that's where the healing begins, in the mess, in the breath, in the music, in the silence that follows. So if today you feel overwhelmed, lost in your thoughts, spinning in all the what-if spores, come back to your body, feel your feet, feel your breath, let the sound guide you into presence. You don't need to fix your entire life in one sitting. You just need to return to this moment, right here. Right now. You don't have to prove anything to deserve peace. You don't have to achieve some mythical version of perfection. You don't need to hustle your way into worthiness or earn your right to rest. But I know that's not how the world made you feel. Somewhere along the way you were taught that safety had to be deserved, that love was a reward, that stillness was something you had to justify, and maybe you believed that. Maybe you still do. Maybe that's why it's so hard to sit still, why rest feels like laziness, why you keep chasing the next accomplishment, the next answer, the next thing, not because you're greedy or broken, but because a part of you is still waiting for permission to exhale. Let me say this as clearly as I can. You deserve peace, not after you've fixed everything, not once you've figured it all out, not when your body looks different, or your relationship is perfect, or your bank account is full. You deserve it now, right now, in the mess, in the middle, in the noise. Even when you feel uncertain, tired, emotional, behind, especially then, because peace isn't a prize, it's your baseline, it's your birthright. It's not about removing every problem, it's about creating a space inside you that doesn't abandon you, no matter what's going on around you. And that space gets stronger every time you choose softness over striving. Every time you pause and check in with yourself, every time you listen to healing sound instead of numbing silence, every time you say to yourself, I am allowed to rest, sound meditation helps us remember that. Because it doesn't demand anything from you, it doesn't care if you're having a productive day or not. It doesn't measure your value by your effort. It just invites you to receive, to let go, to be, and that in itself can feel revolutionary. Because when was the last time you truly received without guilt, without explaining it to someone, without earning it through exhaustion? So many of us are constantly giving time, giving energy, giving care, but we forget receiving is just as sacred, and receiving peace is one of the deepest acts of self-love you can offer. And I know it can feel unfamiliar at first, uncomfortable even. You sit down to relax and suddenly your brain kicks into overdrive. Shouldn't I be doing something? I'm wasting time, there's so much to get done. That's not your intuition talking, that's conditioning, that's the echo of a world that confused productivity with purpose. But peace isn't passive, it's powerful. It takes courage to stop running, to face what you feel, to choose gentleness over judgment. It takes strength to say, I matter enough to rest, I matter enough to heal, I matter even when I'm not doing. Healing frequencies remind your nervous system what that feels like. They help calm the survival instincts that have been on high alert for far too long. They create a container where your body can finally soften, your heart can open, and your mind can quiet down. You don't have to force it. You just have to allow it, and over time, with practice, something begins to shift. You start feeling grounded without needing a reason. You start treating yourself with the same kindness you've always extended to others. You stop waiting for your life to look perfect before you give yourself permission to enjoy it. Peace isn't a finish line, it's a choice, a daily moment-by-moment decision to come back to yourself, to check in, to be honest, and to hold space for everything you are, light and shadow, strong and soft, broken and healing. You are not a problem to fix. You are a human being learning to come home to yourself. And you can do that in small ways: a deep breath, a healing sound, a hand on your heart, a gentle reminder, I am allowed to feel safe. Not later, not someday, now. There is nothing more powerful than a person who knows they deserve peace, who isn't waiting for permission, who understands that self-care isn't selfish, it's sacred, who stops asking, am I enough yet, and starts declaring, I've always been enough. And if you're still learning how to believe that, that's okay. Healing isn't a race, it's a relationship with your breath, your body, your inner voice. And every time you pause, every time you listen to sound that softens the noise, every time you choose rest over reaction, you're building that relationship. You deserve peace. You deserve to feel grounded, not because everything around you is perfect, but because you have found stability within. You deserve to be loved, not for what you do, but for who you are. You deserve to be safe, not someday, but today, in this moment, in this body, in this breath. Let that truth settle into your system. Let the music carry it deeper than words can reach. Let your nervous system remember what it feels like to belong, not to a role or an identity or a goal, but to yourself. You are not too much, you are not behind, you are not broken, you are worthy, you are whole. And you are home.